All right, project number one. It's a Kandi KD 150 go-kart. We got it for free. It's got numerous problems. We'll go over all that. I'm just getting a good look around this thing. Hasn't run probably in about 2 years. When I got it, the original owner told me that it ran, but it had a transmission problem. Well, it doesn't start. The battery's dead. It's got fuel in there that's been sitting in there for about 2 years. You can see the light package on the top is on the back. Every single picture that you ever see of these online shows the lights on the front. There's the connector for the lights. And the other end is down here in the front. So, what I found so far is that the brakes work. It has a hydraulic brake system. Right there, you can see the cylinder. The brake fluid may be a little dirty, but it does work. I had to roll it down a pretty steep hill sitting in it to get it to the trailer. You can see a disc brake on the front left wheel. There's another one on the front right. And you got your big brake on the back. This is a 150cc engine. What I've learned so far is that all of these Chinese go-karts are based on a Honda design. The engines are either sourced directly from Honda or they are copies of the same Honda design. It's an overhead cam engine. It may be a little bit difficult to see, but the cam's way up here. It has a demand fuel system on this guy. What that means is, if you look in here, here's our fuel filter. And it's nice that this is clear because you can see some fuel in it, because I've tried to start this once. But up under here is not a petcock with a valve. It's actually this little gizmo here. It's a diaphragm. The fuel comes out of here on the top and rolls through the filter. This tube here pulls the diaphragm open to allow the fuel down into the carburetor. This tube is connected ultimately to a couple of different spots on the engine. As the piston pulls back, it sucks in air and creates a vacuum. Part of that vacuum is used to open the diaphragm and allow fuel in. That's how you know if you have any compression at all, is when you try to start it. If you see fuel bubbling through here, you know that the engine is pulling at least some kind of a vacuum, enough to pull fuel through. That did happen. What I found for problem number one for starting the engine is that this key switch right here is a 2-position switch. First switch turns on all the lights, which this has many. Second position, position 2, is supposed to start the engine. It's broken, did not work at all. The other problem with the ignition is that the battery was badly corroded and completely dead. There was not enough amps in this thing to do squat. So, after looking around, draining some fuel out of the tank, and opening up the electrical box, which we'll get to, I hooked this up to a Honda Fit car. Just like jump starting a car, you can jump start one of these guys. I have a charger that will deliver up to 15 amps. It was not enough to get past just a couple of clicks. Certainly not enough to turn the starter motor over, which is in here. A lot of engines might be equipped with a pull start right here, but inside here is an electric starter, and it's the only way that this guy starts. In here, in the electric box, is your CDI, which is part of the ignition system. There is a fuse, and this one, it's not a glass fuse with metal caps. It's actually a plastic molded fuse, much like you'd see in an automobile electric box. You also have the business end of the magneto. The magneto generates the high voltage, which sends energy to the spark plug. And you have your main contactor, your main starter contactor is in here, and that's how I tried to start it. I hooked it up to a car battery with jumper cables, and I used a screwdriver just to jump across those contacts. And it does turn over, and it does pull a good vacuum, it does pull fuel in, but beyond that, absolutely nothing would happen. It just would not start. So, we know we have fuel getting delivered to the carburetor. I don't know if there's a good spark yet. We will test that. And item number one for this engine is we are going to clean the carburetor as well as we can. The carburetor is right here. Here's your throttle cable. This is connected to the throttle pedal up front. And this is a very simple carburetor. You remove the air cleaner box, the whole thing. It comes out with 3 bolts. And in here is a hose clamp. You disconnect it. You disconnect the carburetor from the other end. There's another hose clamp right here. And you can pull the entire thing out and take it apart. It's a very simple design. It has 2 jets, a simple bowl system, and 2 diaphragms. I found this out just by watching videos of guys who do this all the time. And because it sat with fuel in it probably for a good 2 years, we're going to clean this carburetor out, and we're going to make an attempt to spend $0 on gasket material and so forth. Seems like the shocks are good, other than squirrels making a home here and chewing up the seat and leaving nuts and whatnot all over the place. A couple other cosmetic things. It did have a camo tarp on top here, but it was so dry rotted that you could tear it with your fingers like a sheet of paper. It actually flew off on the trailer ride back here. We had to bring it about 80 miles or so. But because it turns over, and because I know that there's at least some compression in the engine, we're going to try to clean the carb, put a new spark plug in it, make sure that we have spark. The spark plug is, that may be hard to see, right here. Okay, and other than perhaps some hoses or vacuum tubes might be missing, I'm really not sure how far we're going to have to go. But the first business here is going to be to see if we can get this engine to run and idle. And typically with these engines, either they're going to start or they're not. They'll start within seconds if you have enough juice and you have good fuel and you have good compression. So I've pushed it out in the rain. The rain's coming here. It's the middle of October 2014. Down the shore here in Jersey, and we are going to take it one step at a time and see where we get. I will tell you that if you get a hold of something like this, whether you buy it used or at a yard sale or from your neighbor's uncle's friend, or you happen to get it for free like we did here, once your 12-year-olds see this, you got your work cut out for you. Well, let me tell you. And it's got a CVT, continuously variable transmission. It's under here. The good folks at Kandi decided to bolt the exhaust muffler straight to the cover of the transmission, which is going to make things a little bit difficult. And supposedly that's the main problem. The previous owner said there was a problem with the transmission. it made some noise, sounded like something was breaking, and I know it's probably very hard to see in this video, but the sprocket right here is on the other side of the gearbox. In the CVT, you have something called a variator and a belt connected to the clutch. The clutch is right behind here. That clutch is connected to a shaft, which ultimately turns the sprocket right here. The sprocket is connected to a chain to the axle that drives the wheels. So our whole mission will be to get as much power as humanly possible to this sprocket right there. And we'll take it from there. So next time you'll see us removing the airbox, which is right here, disconnecting the carburetor and pulling it completely out, and we'll put it on the bench, hopefully in some good lighting, and we'll take that apart and we'll clean the jets and every little orifice that we can find in there and check the diaphragms and make sure they're okay. We'll see you next time.